real estate for 14 years here at KW since the beginning. What was the next question?
How did you get into selling lake property? What got you into that?
I think just kind of natural progression. How do you do it? Hello? Can you really not hear? Okay. And just being in Gainesville all of my life, mostly all of my life, uh, and living on the lake, being familiar with the lake, being on the lake my entire life, and just, kind of enjoying that sphere and starting, I guess, with the people that I knew and then growing from there.
Excellent. Renee?
I'm Renee Ackerman. I have been an agent. How long have you been an agent? 13 years. And always with KW. And actually, my very first listing, which was crazy, was a lake property. And I ended up having, I know we're not supposed to be a dual agent, but I had both the buyers and the sellers. So I learned a lot about lake properties very, very quickly as far as what is needed to know for a real estate transaction. I have never lived on the lake, so I have enjoyed it, and we've had boats on it, but I got a crash course really very early, and so then it's just expanded from there, starting with my sphere of influence and then referrals from other clients.
Hey, I'm Dana Burns. I've been selling for 25 years this year. I moved to Lake Lanier in 2006. Had my own little brokerage while I had my boys who have now grown up, and I came to Keller Williams, Romans 16 years ago. I lived on the lake, needed to sell my lake house. I called Bev Knight. She came and she listed my house and recruited me to come over and be a buyer's agent. So that's how it began. And then same thing, just living on the lake. Let's see, I moved off the lake 2 years ago. But so for, I don't know, 18 years or so, lived on the lake, met people that way, was active in Lake Lanier Association. I think it's pretty important if you want to sell on the lake that you be around people who are on the lake. So that'd be your best way to get in and the way I started.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Dana, since you're going ahead, we'll go ahead and start with you. So how does your listing presentation differ for a lake property that does just a normal residential property?
Yeah, I definitely have. I actually have 3 presentations. I have a lake targeted one. We're going to talk about specifically what I do to market a lake property, how, and that's a little different than a luxury home that's not on water versus a home, say, around 500,000, an executive home. So those are the 3 listing presentations that I have. The one for the lake is going to be printed out on a really nice paper. It's going to go, everything is just elevated, even if it's, say, a lake house at 700,000 on the lake. That's the lower end of the price range. So, but I just want to present that I'm an expert and that come across nice with high quality. Okay. What do y'all have anything else different in yours?
I would say the same.
Okay, so when we're going on a listing presentation for a lake property, what things do you look for, like as far as dock information, water levels, full pool, core line, that kind of thing? Where do we start there? Shelley? Renee?
Okay. I would say just getting a good idea, and a nice tour, I guess, knowing their view, knowing that their permit is current and active, looking at the condition of their dock, make sure that it is safe. People look for that first, I think, just like the repairs in a house, what they may have to spend for their dock. I like to encourage a homeowner to have a electricity inspection on a dock, just because it, is so important. And that just kind of hits home in my past experience, family-wise.
And I should say that usually needs a special electrician, a marine
Yes,
electrician.
right.
So if you need those contacts, let us know.
Yeah,
But
the
that-
Corps has a list of
Yeah.
those that you can use, especially when you're re-permitting. So,
Okay. And as far as water levels, deep water, how do you guys go about measuring the water?
You
At
can
the
get a
dock.
depth finder.
A depth finder, or if you're, a lot of times your owners will know, because it's important to them. But, you know, you can also, if they don't, and you don't have a waterproof tape measure, you know, you can use the anchor rope. You can drop an anchor and mark it and then bring it up. Of course, lake levels change all the time, so, you know, you're going to want to emphasize, if it is a deep water, if there's deep water levels there, because that changes the size of the boats that you can have in there. And if it's at the very tip of one of the finger coves, you know, those get really, really low. So you kind of want to have those ideas of where, and some of this is going to have to come from your clients, of, you know, the lowest it's ever been is this, the highest it's ever been is this. You know, you want to, there are companies that will come and move your dock in and out for you if you need to. If you have a buyer that's like, well, I don't want to have to do that, well, they'll go around the lake and they move them out, move them in for you. Because we know the lake levels change so much. But I've used an anchor, I've used a depth,
Yeah.
I don't have a depth finder.
Yeah, you can get one, it's like $100 at Home Depot or Amazon. You can get more expensive ones too, but that works for me.
Yeah.
But a lot of time, you're right, the owner knows because it's in their boat, right? They got a fish finder, depth finder, all the things, so they can tell you. I usually say at full pool, if I'm gonna call it deep water, I'd like to have about 15 feet. And when I'm measuring, I'm not measuring toward the shoreline, I'm measuring where their dock is, the end of that dock, straight down. So that's, how I kind of define that. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
closest to where it would be the
Yeah,
deepest.
and I think you're right, like right now, I went on Field Department this year, they have to sell water, so my advice is we're not going to sell this summer. But if they had to sell, then I might go down a road of talking about a permit to dredge, what that looks like, those kind of things. So that's something you can do when you're in a season where today, full pool, which I know we're gonna may talk about in a minute, but it's the 1071. Today we're at 1066. I can't think of, I don't know off the top of my head the last time we were at full pool, but it's been a rough summer.
another thing to add to, your last question, I would say, finding out and talking to the homeowner about if they need to reposition, especially in a
Drought season.
drought like we have now. Because most docks, or all docks, the Corps will allow you to kind of move your, you know, it all depends on the neighbors and how close, and the neighbors have to agree. But if that kind of gives you a better position as far as depth, that's a good, you know, buyers certainly like to see that and know that you can do that. And I'm old school, I use the rope. I've kind of taken a rope and a small anchor and marked like every foot on the rope. Especially for buyers, because, you know, sellers do give you that information, but usually buyers want to know for themselves rather than taking their word for it. Yeah.
And I would say too, like, I've had one time where somebody jumped the dock, they didn't need permission for that. I would say what you need to know too is that when you're in Lake Lanier, that you can like, every cove is different. There are some coves where you just push out a little bit and there's a huge drop. So just knowing, and even looking at aerials, they've updated them now, but when I first started selling here on Lake Lanier, they had like where it was like the 100-year drought. You could just Google it, use Google Earth and see what it was gonna look like in drought season. So that's something I've used, you know, to look up stuff too.
Excellent. Okay, so how about core line? Let's talk about that. So how do you find out where the core line starts? Is there a reference? Can you see that on the tax records? Where do you find that information?
I use the tax records. A lot of times, especially if I've got a buyer looking and we're standing on the property, if you pull up the tax records and go to the map, it'll show you where the core line is. And the core lines make no sense. They don't. And, you know, so I think that is, you know, for me, that gives them a good visual. They're like, okay, so that tree line, a lot of times sellers will mark the trees that are the core line, or the Corps marks them, so they're marked. but sometimes on older properties, it's been worn off, you can't see
And
it.
it's red paint.
And it's
That's
red
what you're looking
paint,
for, you know,
yes.
It's a big
Thank
red
you.
ring or two around.
Around a tree, and that is the core line. A lot of times you can also see where they've stopped cutting the grass. That's pretty much the core line. Or where a gravel drive or a concrete path will stop and then it turns to gravel, because when it's core property, you can have a gravel walk, but you can't have a cemented walk. So if it's already there, chances are that's where the core line is, because the current sellers know that and they did what was in compliance with the core. So, but it does show up on the tax records, and you just kind of have to, you can, see what's the next property over, and it'll say Army Corps of Engineers.
Do the grandfather, I'm sorry, do the grandfather permits, are they included on the tax record?
No.
The
No,
gravel
I don't think
drive,
so.
the grass to
I don't
water.
see it on
Yeah.
I don't
tax
see it on
record,
that.
But I see it
Yeah.
on the permit.
Yep.
Permits are starting to change. I just had one where it didn't show any of that.
Right.
We had to go back to the Corps. They have certain days. They wouldn't give anything to me. I might call tomorrow, get a different ranger, and have a different story. So it is tough. Please don't ever tell your client you're gonna
Start
have like.
early.
Yeah, start early.
Start early.
You're not gonna get that dock permit in their name before you close. I don't know if anybody's like, you may all have sold something on Lakeland Air. I'm just not sure what level we're talking to, but like, you're not gonna get a dock permit in their name before closing. Don't ask for that. They'll be like, oh, clearly never sold, So, I was trying to think of what else to tell. There's also sometimes an orange core marker as well. There's a plaque on a
stake.
tree sometimes. So, but you definitely wanna read those dock permits, see what's included. There should be, if the grass is mowed all the way to the water, it needs to be on the permit that you have the authority to do that, or that may not transfer over. What else? Power and water are listed on the dock permit as things you're allowed to have in permits. If you wanna put riprap, you need a permit. If you wanna dredge, you need a permit, so.
If the permit is for a single boat slip, you cannot put in a double boat slip.
Without asking.
Without asking, without getting it changed or permitted. If you wanted to buy a new boat dock, say the one that's there is in shambles and you wanna buy one, it has to be in the same footprint of what is there unless you get it permitted for a bigger one or a smaller one. But either way, and if it is just a swim dock, 9 times out of 10, it's not gonna be permitted to be a boat dock. So that was all they could get. They're not issuing any new boat docks, haven't been forever, don't think they will be in the near future. So if it a property doesn't have to have a boat dock. If it's got the permit, that increases the value of the property because they're not issuing new permits. So if they've got the permit for the dock, even if the dock is not there, the new owners can buy whatever size dock is permitted and put it there. But they have to have the permit already.
And something people ask me sometimes is like, maybe we're buying a 32 by 32 is the largest dock allowed on Lake Lanier, and sometimes maybe we're buying one and it's just got like a regular pitched roof, and they want to know, do they need an extra permit to have a double decker? You do not. So that a 32 by 32 can go up, and the footprint, but you don't need an extra. You're gonna have to apply for it in your name anyway to get your new dock permit. Show them what you're gonna get, but if you're standing there looking at it and your only hesitation is, I have a pitched roof and I want a double decker, that's fine.
You can go up.
Yeah.
You just can't go out.
So Renee,
And I learned,
you mentioned gravel. Do they allow gravel on the core part? Because,
It's usually mulch.
yeah.
It is usually
I said
mulch.
I said gravel, but it's usually mulch or
Or the
a
gravel's
dirt,
already there.
or the gravel's already
Okay.
there.
I have had ones that
natural.
gravel were already there.
Right.
My parents had gravel, like from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
The ranger came out, let's say 10 years ago, and said, you just shovel that up and
Yeah.
just put mulch down.
Yeah.
They had approved the other.
Yeah.
yeah.
The Corps changes their mind all the time.
Yeah, I just
There's
had one
no
that
rhyme or
closed
reason.
this week, and they had a paved path all the way to the dock. So, of course, we wanted to make sure, that was grandfathered, and we wanted to make sure that it was still, grandfathered. Of course, their core line was really low. Yeah. One thing about changing docks that I've learned from my own dock experience, if you have a dock that, is kind of unusual, like at that time, we had a covered dock, and then it was a very, very large dock that's not allowed any longer, and a covered dock slip, and then a large platform that was, all platform. And that's not allowed anymore because the fish can't get to the light. I don't know. It was ridiculous. But we learned that if we took that out, got rid of that dock because it was in the form that it almost needed to, we couldn't go back with that size or the large platform because it's not allowed anymore. If we kept the same one and remodeled it, then we could keep that. So you have to look at what's allowed now and then what's grandfathered in. If you see all of these, like sometimes on the lake, you'll notice like a 3-slip or a double-decker dock. And I think people have kept those because if they got rid of them, they could never have that again.
Same
So,
thing with enclosed, you know,
Enclosed,
you see a
yep.
pen situation or
yeah,
whatever.
apparently the fish can't see the sunlight
Yeah,
if it's,
Yeah.
so.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry, and last thing, jet ski ports, are there just appurtenances, they're accessories? Is there anything that has to do with jet ski ports,
I don't know, I'd stick one on.
you just stick on, it's just.
Ask for it.
You're
Up
allowed
to
to.
two.
Allowed
Okay.
Two jet
Okay.
skis or two
Ports.
two ports?
And I don't think you have to have that on your permit. I don't think we ever have.
Yeah.
Does it have to be the 50 feet? Cause it takes up space.
Makes up
Is that-
space, I don't know, you know, they want 50 feet from dock to dock, and it's probably gonna cut into your setback.
Okay.
What were you gonna say, David?
What I was gonna say too is in the exchange of this process, keep in mind, the court notoriously is saying, oh, we're behind. It's not uncommon to take 6 or 8 months to get a permit once they get the property. But it's very important to meet your residents. There's a lot of different personalities, and they have their own interpretation. And all they do is say, go back to that big old thick manual, and if you go find that manual, they can't find their rules in there sometimes.
I've downloaded that and often I'll forward it to, you know, especially a buyer, just so they'll have, they can stay up all night reading it.
6 months would be generous.
Yeah, 6
You
months
got
is
it.
generous. 4 is
Yeah, they're really hard.
notoriously slow and
Oh,
behind.
yeah.
When they do the exchange and you apply for your new ownership change, they're gonna recheck to see that your steps are in compliance, all kinds of things. So it's like no carpets, no,
Yeah.
and they're tightening up big time.
Can't have a refrigerator sitting on your dock. Yeah, I got dinged for that one time. You can't, I mean, you know, yeah, just all kinds of stuff. So if you add that, let's make sure you're not in your check period, you know, I'm just saying, yeah, no fire pit. They really don't like those tent things, you know, like for shade up above, yeah,
Don't touch the trees.
yeah, oh, definitely don't touch the
And
trees.
they are moving red and green lines around all the time. They're not permanent.
Oh. I didn't know
So
that.
they're trying to capture more red and less green. And green's the only place you can have a dog.
That's right.
All right, so since we're talking about docks, how do you assign a value to a dock? I mean, how much different is a double-decker as opposed to just a single-slip dock, or, I mean,
The value is really in having the dock permit and having a dock, in my opinion. You know, most people that want to get on the lake because there are not any dock permits being issued, as long as it's got a dock, I honestly have never had a buyer that said, oh, well, we need a double slip, so we're not gonna look at that house. I haven't.
I definitely have.
You have?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Yeah, just they're gonna have 2 boats. Mama wants a pontoon and Daddy needs a fishing boat, and we're gonna have some ports on the side. That's like, in my opinion, that's like legit lake people. They are serious. They're gonna buy, and they want that double slip. I have shown them single slips where I've went out ahead of time. I felt like, hey, we got 50 feet here, we got 50 feet here. It's a possibility for an upgrade. I'm never gonna promise you anything. I will email it to the Corps. I will get their thoughts. I'll never guarantee anything because we can't guarantee anything the government does anyway. So, but those are conversations I've definitely had. I haven't had a ton, but I have had people. I've had people that said, no, I do not want a community dock. I love a community dock. Give me one all day long. Somebody else takes care of it. So
do you think that if the house was $1 million and it had a single slip versus a double slip, would you value the double slip and price that house higher because it had a double slip than a single
I
slip.
really try to comp dock to dock. I really try to
yeah.
comp double slip to double slip, single slip to single slip. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. I'd probably give 50,000. This is just me. This could be totally wrong. In my mind, I'm like, it might be worth another 50,000 because I feel like an extra slip, maybe another 50,000. Yeah. I always feel like a dock permit adds 150,000 to a property, and I'm just kind of anyway. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. That is no science nor whatever.
How does your comps as far as a community dock versus just a
I
personal dock?
definitely am not gonna comp a single, or a private dock with a community dock. They're two different things, and I would not comp one with the other.
Do you make it an even value, cause like the community docks have the slip price?
Some do, some
Is
don't.
that the value of that's added on to the house?
Not really, because it's hard when you're doing comps like that, because every community has a different price. Some communities don't have a price. Some sells the dock slips included, like at Marina Bay, I have one right now, dock slips included. I think those have gone up. I think somebody was telling me they're in the 90,000 range. I used to live in High Point. The dock's included. There's no, I don't know of a value that's ever been, added to a dock there. So it's just all different. I think a Harbor Point right now, I'm pretty sure it's 65.
And it'll look very long waiting list.
Yeah, and a long waiting list. So, it's hard. It's hard. If I have a brand new nice dock, I'm definitely adding value to the house. A brand new Mac Daddy's probably 150, so I might add 100. I kind of feel like a dock is, it's a depreciating asset. You're not going to get, everything you pay for. It's not furniture in a nicer way. When you're writing that up, I just had to personally, with Carter, give $2,500. So I have always been told it wasn't Carter's fault. He was just happened to be the attorney sitting there that day. Yeah.
I didn't do that, I didn't force it.
Yeah, he didn't force me. It's a, 1485 deal. We're gonna make it happen, but, so agent checks the box, we check the box on the disclosure statement that the dock is staying. We get a bill of sale from the buyer. And what come into question was the lift, okay? So I have always been told, maybe we'll revisit that after our transaction, that a lift is an attached appurtenance. And if I want it, I'm gonna write it on my bill of sale for the dock and all attached appurtenances to be included. It's gonna show a 0 on the bill of sale. That's how it goes. That's because lenders are not gonna lend on personal property, and a dock is it's personal property. So the permit itself is attached to the land, but that floating structure is personal property. So we had a little change of thoughts on that. Anyway, we all gave to make it work, but just to double do everything, if after that experience, we're gonna start putting it on the disclosure. If it's down there, are you gonna take it or leave it so that it's crystal clear? Because I don't wanna get down to closing date. My sellers are waiting to come. We had to close in different rooms. It really bums out the experience on what should be a happy day.
Okay, so other than docks, we know those add value, but what are other ways that you value the property, such as views, cove versus open water? What are the other things that add value?
The ease of the path to the lake, definitely adds value because there are more properties that you need to be a goat to get down to the lake, or 100 steps and you realize you left your phone back at the house and you're like, oh well. So, and there's just not as many, gentle walks to the lake. So if you have a property that has a gentle walk to the lake and a double slip, really nice party deck boat dock with a beautiful view, whether it's in the cove or open water, as long as it's deep water, that is definitely going to be your highest value as far as what that lake property is valued at versus one that is 100 steps down, a single slip dock, no view because the core line is right at the house and everything is trees, and seasonal views mean you have to stand up and look in a corner of a window. So that not everybody, but the most desirable is the gentle walk, the open views, and the dock. So that I would definitely value more than a dock that's hard to get to.
And I would say if you add a sunset to that, that is like.
That's your money property.
Yeah,
For sure, yeah.
And I have had people that will only see an easterly view.
Yep.
They wanna see the sunset,
They wanna see
they'll
sunset.
pay more, it's important, so
Yeah.
that's an
And
extra
that's true.
bonus, yeah.
And talking about that easy walk, and this is more buyer's side, but know the lake. I mean, if you have someone who's looking for that easy walk, they're gonna, there are more of those walks on the south end of the lake, the Forsyth side, the Beaufort side, whereas the north end of the lake is where you start getting into the mountainous areas, and, you know, you are gonna have a lot of times that hard walk to the lake too. And I always say, you know, water runs downhill. If you have a flat lot, you're going to have shallow water.
Yeah.
If you have a steep lot, you're more likely to have deep water, you know, it just continues under the water surface.
And I think that's a good thing to say about driveways, the
Yeah.
more north you get, you're probably gonna get some steep driveways.
Right,
But I'd rather drive to my house, you know, steep to my house on a drive and have a flat walk to the water.
Right,
So
right.
if you're kinda, you know,
You're gonna
it's something you can say, you know.
Yeah, you're gonna have
Steep's
to,
not bad in my opinion.
no, you're gonna
Yeah.
have to
that's
deal
deeper water.
Yeah, steeper.
with the topography on one
Right.
end or the other.
Right.
And I'd rather have a steep driveway and an easier walk to the lake than putting the house closer and then having a steeper, path down to the lake. And also know the lake. The lake has different personalities in different parts of the lake. The south end of the lake is a little bit more active. It's got restaurants and bars that you can go to, bigger boats, the bigger marinas.
Y'all, that-
The northern end of the lake is a little bit more family oriented, a little bit slower paced, and then you get even further up into the northern part where the river comes in, and, you know, that's really a quiet place. So if they're looking for a quiet part of the lake, then the north end is probably where they're gonna wanna be versus the south end.
And I'd say know your bridges too, the further, you know, there's some up north and different places where you can't get a double, you know, a big double-decker Sea Ray under, it's not gonna happen. So you need to know, don't be, you know, ask what type of boat they're thinking of getting.
Yeah.
Because the worst call you could get is, hey girl, the water's up, I can't get my boat under here. I've never done that, I would never have learned that the hard way. So,
Yeah.
like, put that bimini down. But, yeah.
So as far as your seller's property disclosure, what additional information do you ask that they include in that? Is there anything different? For
Check
lake
that
properties?
box, and put on there if they're gonna keep their list, you know, their list or any appurtenances, just go ahead and list it on there.
Yep.
I'll be doing that.
And if they've had any issues with the dock or permitting, or if they've had any fines or anything like that, that's something you would definitely wanna add into.
Yes, that's
That-
right, that's a good point. I sold one, gosh, it's probably been 10 years ago now. They had a whopping $30,000 fine, and it had to be paid before we could close because they clear cut trees. So that had to happen, that had to happen,
Is
so,
that
yeah,
like a lien on the?
that's right. There was a lien on the property, and so.
And it will have to be paid at
Can
closing.
we look ourselves somewhere?
I did not, I was representing the seller, they were honest, we knew it was there, we told them, it was, I feel like it was written on their dock permit. I mean, it was a long time ago. It was on
So
their dock.
say they don't know, right? Let's say that they check the box, they don't know. Is there anywhere we can kind of?
You're gonna
check
know
behind
if
them?
you have something like that. If you're the buyer, you're gonna wanna see, a current active dock permit. If it is expired, it's not the kiss of death. If you call up there, the Corps will say, we're not in the business of taking away dock permits. They'll wanna give you, you know, but you need to have, you know, the rangers are good to email you and just say, you know, we don't see any issues, something. Or have your buyer call and talk with them, whatever, but, you know, it likely will be renewed, but just see what's on even that expired permit, if there's, you know, any infractions on it.
Would that be something that would have to be paid at closing?
That
Do
one
we
I
know?
we paid ahead of time, they paid
Yeah.
it to the Corps, but we had to provide
Would
a
that
copy
be
of
like
the
a
receipt.
Yes.
defaulted community association,
So-
do we know?
So I've had one where, the sellers had a lot of health issues and they just forgot to pay to have the dock renewed. You know, life happens. And that had to be paid at closing. The renewal, it had to be in good financial standing.
Yes.
So that the new owners could apply for the transfer.
If you go to a listing presentation and you get the listing that's their dock permit is expired, there are two rules of thought, but I think because of that, I would go ahead and start the renewal process and make a copy of everything. Pay with a check, make a copy of the check. All those kind of things that document that you've paid that and you were trying to do, get it in your name. So that's what I would do. Sometimes the ranger will say not, again, it just depends. It's what makes it tough,
All right, so as far as buyers go, is there anything different that needs to happen during due diligence? And what length of due diligence do you usually put when you're working with a buyer?
That would depend, honestly. I don't think it adds any extra time if the dock is in relatively good condition, or you can tell 5 boards need to be replaced or whatever. Would have a marine electrician check the electrical at the dock, and depending on their schedule, you might need an extra day or 2 for that. But I've never really had to extend due diligence for anything to be taken into consideration for the dock.
Let's see. I had one that was recently, Alan and I did last year, that as the water was starting to go down, this person lived out of town, they didn't get the dock cleaned out. One float was on dirt and the others were floating. So we did have to extend a little bit but we just limited it, the due diligence to that. They had to come check that float. And just so you know, I haven't seen this in a long time, but you would see styrofoam floats. That's like a big no-no. You would have to immediately, upon sale or getting the dock permit in your name, just know that that's not gonna be, you gotta either change out the floats, and that can be pricey, so, just know that too, if you ever go to one that has styrofoam, but like I said, I haven't seen one in a minute, so I think maybe we got them all, I don't know, that used to be a thing though.
Yeah.
So how do you, for a lake buyer, how do you simply explain what the core is and what that means and what you can and can't do?
Can you just say a nightmare?
I mean, I think for us, kind of a general overview, we all know about the trees, we all know about using core property, that kind of thing. But like I said, I like to share the rules and kind of direct them to that website. Also, people usually want to know about the transfers process. They often think that has to be done, like you said, before closing or whatever, but just explaining, after you close, I think you have 6 months, maybe, to go to the Corps, apply for that in your name, and they'll have to go through all their inspections regardless of how recent it was that they renewed, and just go through that process. So I think that's important. I usually try to remember at a closing to give them that application. So they'll have that in front of them. They're so busy, it
It's
takes a
all online,
while.
too. You can
Yeah.
totally apply online now, you're just
Yeah.
gonna need, PDF of your deed, upload it.
Right.
You can upload your renewal now, you can really do everything online.
So I had a sale one time. This is how the core can be so far behind. My clients sold one lake house, bought another lake house. They were in the process of getting it into their name.